Now, our first speaker today can give us an insight into what it's like to be on the front line of these types of incidents. Leif Peterson is Insurance and Claims Manager at Freya Transport and Logistics. Now, as some of you may well recall, Leif joined the Tapper EMEA Nordics Regional Conference in September, and today we've invited him to return to share his cargo crime experiences with this bigger virtual conference audience. So more of the association's members will be gaining important information from what we're about to hear and benefit from this valuable insight. Now, Leif's presentation today looks at some quite spectacular real-life cargo crime incidents, as well as examples of practical and low-cost cargo crime prevention methods, and will outline Tapper EMEA's important role in Freya's supply chain security programme. So now let's welcome Leif to the studio. Leif, thank you so much for joining us. Let me hand over to you to tell us more.
Thank you very much, Sam, for the nice presentation, and thank you for the opportunity to talking to you all. What I intend to do today is to tell a little bit about my past experiences within the cargo crime and how I see the present situation, and I'll also have a sneak peek into the future. Cargo crime, theft of cargo from the transports is a very big issue for me. It takes a lot of my time. But I have to keep in mind at least that, in fact, the risk or the chance, if you will, of a shipment being stolen while in Freya's custody on road transport in Europe, that has never exceeded 1 of 22,000. In fact, the last statistic says it is rather 1 of 30,000. So it's a minor issue, but however, a big issue when it happens. Roadside crime can hit anyone. This picture is a picture of the door handle in my caravan. Reason that the key doesn't fit anymore is that somebody tried to break into my caravan. This summer on my way to a holiday in Provence at a roadside parking facility in close to Dijon in France. I woke 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning having this strange feeling that something isn't right, and indeed something wasn't right. The next thing I saw was the door handle moving downwards. I went up and opened the door, and what I could hear was some footsteps moving very fast away from me. And that is in fact what happened. Somebody has used some kind of tool to manipulate the locking cylinder and tried to get into the caravan. In fact, I had parked by the book, so to speak, after common recommendations on trucks, well-lit video surveillance within sight from the restaurant at the place. But anyway, this happened. A pretty scary experience, I would say. Taking back to my beginning in the transport industry, that was back in 1977. At that time, this kind of trucks, the Volvo F88, was the working horse of transport within Europe, but in fact also to destinations such as Kabul, Tehran, Baghdad. We used these marvelous trucks. Back then, I don't recall cargo crime as a big issue. However, within the first months I had been working in the industry, we had the first theft I recall. And that was one of the classics. That was theft of a complete truckload of salted cod in Italy. Classic, the Italian way of doing things. They forced the driver out of the truck, went away with truck trailer and the salted cod. My boss went down to Italy to try to find his truck. He returned with the number plates. He found the truck being scrapped at a scrapyard and could return with the number plates. That was the very first experience I recall with cargo crime. Myself, being a truck driver for 88 years in the 1980s, I have 2 cases. One case, a break into a reefer trailer where somebody stole 35 kilos of spare ribs. Who the hell will steal 35 kilos of spare ribs? I hope they've been hungry. The other case I had on my own truck was theft of beer. not a big deal, a few cases. The major issue with both those incidents was in fact that both transports were made under customs seal. So we had quite some problems ruling out later on with the customs. But that was in fact what I experienced myself in my years on the European roads. When we come to the late 1980s, then I had joined the Freya Transport Company, who then was 5 years old. I worked there as a dispatcher and transport planner for quite some years. And just to give you a brief introduction to what is Freya, we are a Scandinavian-owned company. We have office in Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Poland, China, and in fact also now in the Netherlands. We are a classic freight forwarder, meaning we use subcarriers for 98% of the transports we make. We operate an own fleet of some 3,300 trailers. And just to give you an impression of where we are working in Europe, this is a screen dump from our trailer tracking system made on a random Wednesday morning. And as you see, we are extensively present in Denmark, of course, Sweden, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Belgium, Germany, and Poland. And we are also present in elsewhere. We do not do anything in Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus at the moment. But that is where we are operating. Sweden is a really big market of ours. During the 1990s, we didn't see cargo crime as a big issue. We had some random cases, especially, unfortunately, again in Sweden, tarpaulin cuttings and some random thefts of whatever cargo the criminals found in the trailers. No real big deal until we had a real wake-up call in 2011. This picture is taken from the surveillance camera on our then cross-docking facility in Helsingborg, Sweden. It's taken about 6:30 on a Saturday morning. The gate in the background, unfortunately the night before it was hit by a truck and it couldn't anymore close or open. The landlord didn't think that was a major issue. It turned out to be. These three gentlemen who are now walking across the yard early in the morning, the next thing they do, they are entering into the terminal building via a back door. They simply locked up the door. It turned out that the locking cylinder had been swapped. And next step, a truck coming into the area, another truck came shortly after and docked at the loading ramp. And then what happens within the next less than 15 minutes was that the three gentlemen we see in the picture, they disconnected the forklift from the chargers. The charging room they came into, there was no room sensors, but there was in the rooms behind where the goods was. After they had disconnected and they started loading 54 pallets of wine and spirits prepared for distribution on the following workday. Loaded into 2 trucks and off they went. And we never saw anything more of these 54 pallets of beverages. Or to be precise, the police found 9 pallets of wine half a year later by coincidence. But that was what was stolen in a very short time. The loss for the client, for cargo owner, was about 1.5 million Swedish kroner. Unfortunately, it turned out he had no insurance cover, and we could limit our liability as carriers to considerably lower amounts. So that in fact ended up tragically by a cargo owner losing a lot of money and Freya losing a valued client. But that was what happened then. In fact, I can tell you this is the second time I show this slides to anyone, telling this story. 2011, that was also about the time we became TAPA members. In the 2010s until 2018, we had to rate to the fact that cargo crime was in fact an ever-increasing problem to us. We had a lot of minor attacks in Sweden primarily, but also elsewhere. And this is the classic one, tarpaulin cuts. Thieves take whatever they find inside the truck and they go away with some 10, 12, 15 cubic meters, exactly what fits into a van. That was quite an issue. We also, in this time, had a number of very big thefts where whole vehicles, trailers, loads were stolen from us. A few, but very expensive ones. What was at that time, once more in Sweden, which is our home market, one of our home markets, so to speak, was normal consumer goods. What you can buy, everyone can buy in a kiosk or a supermarket. That was what they were going for then. During these years until 2018, where we had the number of incidents that topped, we also had a few, 2 or 3 incidents where we lost cargo due to freight exchange portal fraud. But let me say it this way, 2018 was the worst year for us in regard of cargo crime. Then, in fact, it has stabilized and decreased later on. I'll come back to that. I have taken one more case that is from 2017, also in Sweden. And this ended up with a real bad day for the criminals, I can tell you. What happened was that some of the criminal guys, they climbed the fence using a ladder, went into the yard. From the inside, they could take away the housing for the mechanism controlling the gate, taking out a wheel from the gearing, and simply pushing the gate open. Next step was taking forward the horses, a stolen truck. They go directly to one of several trailers parked in the line. This trailer was fitted with a kingpin lock. They simply moved backwards with the truck into the kingpin lock and hit it 3 times. Third time, the housing of the kingpin lock cracked and fell off. And then they simply took the trailer and away they went. Unfortunately, they did not close the gate when they went out of the yard. And a guard coming some 20 minutes later could say, here's something wrong. He called our site manager, and it took 20 minutes, half an hour for him to find out there's the trailer missing, and it's here. And we could send the police directly to the site some 10 kilometers away, finding 2 local criminals trying to find out what they had stolen. And this is what they had stolen. This is some semi-theft targeted goods. We don't think it was really what they were going for, because what they didn't know that was inside of the house behind the trailer there was some 15 pallets of real high-value goods. So which should be loaded. This is also taking place on a Saturday evening. The real high-value goods should be loaded Sunday evening, and then the trailer should go on to the destination. So we frankly believe that what they had an idea that this trailer should be loaded with some real high-value goods, but were very much disappointed because it wasn't on board when they stole it. What they did to the goods, you can see in the last picture, that was that they made a lot of damage to it. So nothing was missing, but there was a lot of damage. The 2 criminals, they were taken to court, and they became a short jail sentence. due to this incident and a couple of more incidents he was suspected for. I believe this tells a little bit about the development from 2009 and to 2007. And in fact, that was also what a pretty good picture on what happened, because when theft, especially in Sweden, had topped in 2018, we saw a slight decrease in the number of thefts. And why is that? Well, some of the well-known criminals, they were behind bars. We know that. But in fact, also, in my opinion, the reason that we saw this decrease in thefts is the fact that at that time, especially cargo owners had started taking very seriously care of their goods, protecting their goods. Meaning that real high value goods we were not anymore asked to take that as normal goods. There were some security measurements to be taken, and I think that's a very good thing, and that we can thank the cargo owners for doing a very good job there. We also had, in cooperation with a number of clients, some very simple and low-cost measurements against cargo theft. Basically simple to avoid having the theft-targeted cargo on board the vehicles parked during nights and weekends. Sweden was still the major problem to us, but also areas such as Sussex and Kent and northern France, Belgium, some parts of Germany, we were attacked at that time. But mainly in Sweden we had the issue. And some of the things we did was simply to keep the goods and trailers and vehicles out of Sweden for the weekends. That reduced the number of thefts considerably. Another thing we did together with one client who was really hard hit by theft of goods was we suggested him to, instead of asking us to load Friday morning for a destination 300 kilometers away and then have the truck standing open to everyone for the whole weekend, we suggested him, with the purpose of unloading, as I say, 7 o'clock on the Monday morning at the consignee. We suggested them we start loading instead 3 o'clock Monday morning, and then go directly to the client for unloading in the morning 300 kilometers away. And then they come up with their own idea. Why don't we only load Monday morning 7 o'clock and then deliver at noontime? And that's exactly what we did in a number of relations, simply loading for direct delivery. We have never in Sweden had any attacks to trucks while driving. It's always in the parking we have the problem. And that is, I will say, that is a very simple and very low-cost attitude or approach to the issue. But it takes some time getting rid of tight time slots and lead times. But that is one very practical, low-cost way of doing things. TAPA, in this connection, long-time members at this time, and what we do use the TAPA facilities, such as TIS and the parking facilities. And in fact, I must say we have a sneak peek into the standards using elements that is convenient to us, though we are not at present certified. But in TAPA in general, I would say that is a very good, very good result they have come to. I don't think TAPA themselves imagine how many contracts, insurance conditions, whatever, we see TAPA fingerprints in very clearly. And that is from members as well as from non-TAPA members. And I will say once more, it's a genius idea to connect all stakeholders and giving us a forum where we can exchange ideas and thoughts on how to prevent cargo crime. Going from hardcore cargo crime, I have a couple of further issues I will mention here. One is migrants. That's a real big issue. We have been dealing with migrants in France, UK, and indeed we have been dealing with migrants issues in our Greece traffic. What happens when migrants in a truck is revealed, for instance, when a truck shall leave a harbor in Greece, is that truck, trailer and goods is seized by the Greek authorities. Driver is jailed for a couple of days. He is accused of human trafficking. He comes out of jail after 2, 3, 4 days. Goods are released immediately, and then we have to open a court case against the Greek state to have truck and trailer release. That gives an interruption in the transport flow simply, and that is pretty much an issue. I will not say we have many of those cases, but some cases we have when there is a huge pressure on the migration from into and out of Greece. Another issue I'll mention is food transport. Issue with food transport is that not that much that goods are stolen, but that is intrusion into the trucks. Food safety. A lot of food clients, they are very, very concerned when foreign persons enter into the truck. In fact, a lot of them, they say, if unknown persons has been inside the truck with foodstuff, the foodstuff is not anymore usable for human consumption. You don't have a loss in the understanding of the transport legislation, but client suffers a loss anyway. That's pretty much a issue, and I will say that was perhaps an issue that TAPA could take into consideration, supporting the members who are in the food industry. A little sneak peek into the future, look into the crystal ball. What will happen the next years? We don't know. My best guess is that girls and boys fooling around with knives on parking lots around in Europe, cutting turbulence, finding and stealing whatever they find attractive, that will go on. But I also do believe that we will see some new modus operandi, or perhaps we even already see them. There's a lot of talk about subcontracting as a risk, and I do agree with those who say that uncontrolled subcontracting is a risk to take into consideration. But frankly, as the structure is at the moment in the European transport industry, subcontracting cannot be avoided. That is a major way of doing things for all larger freight forwarding companies. Then I think we will have an issue, or we do have an issue, with theft of information and use of the stolen information to redirect deliveries. I think there are some elements that are vulnerable in the digital information flow surrounding the transports. And freight exchange portal fraud is definitely also an issue to take into consideration in the future. I'm not that afraid of the big, well-established freight exchange portals, but we do have an issue with the minor, less professional ones who are operating in some parts of Europe. And then let me put it this way, we will probably also see modus operandi in the future that we have never even thought of. So I will wrap this presentation up by saying that was my experiences, something about my experiences, my points of view. And one thing is very sure, cargo crime has come to stay in one way or the other, one version or the other. We do have to stay alert. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for
Thank
that
you.
presentation.
Thank
it
you.
was very revealing, very
Thank you.
interesting. Thank you. Before you leave, I do have a few quick questions
Yes.
for you. Now, I'd like to begin with the topic of subcontracting, because you mentioned controlled subcontracting in your presentation. What does that really mean in more detail, and can you give us some examples?
I can give you a few examples. Subcontracting, basically, we as freight forwarders do not own any trucks. We get the transport order from the client. We subcontract to a road haulier or a shipping company or whoever we use as performing carriers. That we can control when we take it one level down. We can also control 2 levels down. But just to give you an example that I saw recently in a claims case, had nothing to do with theft of cargo, but with simple goods damage. There I could see it was revealed that Freyr was number 7 of in total 9 subcontracting parties. This was a shipment of a few pallets from Copenhagen, Denmark to Mannheim, Germany. There were 9 carriers involved in that transport. And with that much communication, there is a very, very huge risk that some important information is going missing, and a huge risk that somebody who shouldn't know of this transport get an opportunity of getting the knowledge of this shipment is on its way. So I see that is extreme with 9 levels of subcontracting, but that is what we see occasionally, and I believe there's the risk. We can control as freight forwarders 1, 2, perhaps 3 levels, but not beyond that, in my opinion.
Digital information flow surrounding transportation is another very important subject that you touched on and covered. What more can you tell us about this?
I would say digital information flow, that is becoming as important as the transport of the goods itself, at least in the opinion of the transport clients. But I think I fully agree there's a lot of good things in a good digital information flow. But do we really need, does he really need to have live tracking of one pallet for the whole journey? That is what freight forwarders offer their clients. Freyr does also offer a client to make real-time tracking of the single shipment. Is that needed? Because that also means a risk that somebody who has bad intentions, they can also follow the shipment. Perhaps it would be good enough for the client to know when goods is delivered, and perhaps afterwards could see some more details. That is one of the issues I see. And then I see quite a risk also that digital communication, that also includes instructing truck drivers by SMS message, by mobile phone. And that is well known, that can be hacked. I also believe we should look into that issue, but that is something that can be abused, in my opinion.
And just one more point to finish off. You've highlighted the value of Freyr's Tapper EMEA membership. Why is this so important to you, and what are the tools that are especially useful?
What is important to us, that is knowledge, know-how, and networking. That is some very good aspects of the Tapper membership, but also the tremendous good tools that has been made. We use the TIS facility. We report ourselves, but we also look into to the statistics or whatever information we can get from there in assessing how to handle the transport. We are using the parking facilities, and as I have said just a moment ago, in fact, we are also utilizing some of the elements in the Tapper standards. In fact, a lot of the elements in the Tapper standards, although we are not yet Tapper certified. And why is that? There simply is no client's requirement making us doing that. I believe we will become certified. It will become so, at least for our warehousing facilities, within the next 2-3 years or so.
And just to pick up on that as well, what more, you mentioned food goods actually in your presentation, but what more can Tapper EMEA do to support the supply chain resilience of companies like Freyr going forward in the future?
Well, I think Tapper can go on the direction they are right now, and then look into some other parts of the supply chain business. Food transport is real issue. I think there's good opportunities, and I'll also note that a lot of foodstuff companies, they are part of, they are members of TAPA already now, and I can tell you when we are dealing contracts with them, they do know also what are the TAPA guidelines. But I think go on with the good work and get even more companies within the TAPA community.
Leif, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a really enlightening presentation, and
Thank you.
thanks for the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.